In last lectures we discussed few issues related to the biomass burning or parali burning. That was in the sequence that was coming, that why the air pollution is becoming a very big issues in Delhi and then in the Indo-Gangetic Plain during just before the winter and after the monsoon season, okay, or during the post monsoon season. So now we are going to discuss that what are the characteristics or what are the types of fuels that we used in India, and then what are the combustion processes and how the emissions of these fuels affect the air pollution, or especially we will discuss that how the emissions is affected by the type of fuel, oxygen content, or the kind of combustion engines that we use. Okay, so what is fuel? Fuel is any substance that provides energy. This is very simple, okay, such as heat, light, motion, or electricity. So any substance that provides energy can be called as a fuel. For example, when we say that for us, for our body, the fuel is actually food. We take food, and from that food actually the food is broken into the small pieces, digested, and part of this is converted to energy. So we get the energy in this one, okay. So and then but there is a difference between the fuel. So fuel, any type of substance that gives energy is fuel, that gives energy is called fuel. And if you transform one form of the energy to another form, then it will be called as energy transformation. So that is not fuel, okay. So don't confuse with this one. Energy transformation is changing from one form of the energy to another form of energy. For example, when the fuel is burnt, okay, the chemical energy is released and that can be used to generate another form of energy such as heat, light, or electricity. So this is the important thing. So the fuel is burnt, the burning is a process, okay, and then energy is the final product that we get, and apart from the energy you also get carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and other gases and particulate matter, especially the primary carbonaceous aerosols, we get that one. So these are actually called kind of fuel, that is actually fuel. And the process of burning of the fuel is called combustion. This is very important. So the combustion can be defined, that process of burning of the fuel, okay. So this is called combustion. So if I just ask you that can we classify the what do you call fuel in how do you classify the fuel? So fuel can be classified in at least two forms, because fuel is a substance, okay, or it is a matter. So this matter can be either solid, liquid, or gas phase. So you have here solid fuel, liquid fuel, and gaseous fuels. We will discuss the details in the later case. The same thing, if we but the other definition of fuel is actually the how it is derived, okay, from the derived is how it is derived. So if it is derived from natural, and this natural is also called biomass, okay, biomass, and then other is called fossil fuel, okay. So natural, this is actually very important to distinguish these two. This is actually that all the things that comes into this process. Fossil fuel is actually kind of condensed phase of fuel from the natural or biomass. So for example, in the fossil fuel you have like coal, you have petrol, you have diesel, okay, then you have PNGs or CNGs. These are also actually like fossil fuel. These fuels were derived from the natural fuel or biomass fuel that was available long time back, and it was deposited, it gets converted to another form of the matter. So that's why it is called fossil fuel, okay. And then this natural form is actually like biomass burning, any kind of biomass that we use, solid, okay, like wood, okay, you can have wood, you can have also like leaves that are there, grasses, bush, or any kind of things that are actually currently in living form, or just has been actually converted that has been actually living form, or is just very recent form of the fuel. The way it is defined, if you just see, there is a very important distinction is this one. I just tell you, carbon 14 is a radioactive isotope, okay, and these radioactive isotopes, if you measure this radioactive isotope concentration in the biomass burning current one, then it will be close to 0 Fermil. But if you just measure this one in fossil fuel, this will be actually depleted. So you have minus say 200 Fermil or so. This is very important, and this has been used to decipher that how much contribution from the source. So once you have something in the air, okay, if something is burned, so you have a carbon, basically you measured organic carbon or elemental carbon, and then you measure this carbon 14 isotope in this one, and then in principle you can calculate that if the fraction F1 is coming from biomass burning, okay, this is the quantity, then you have 1 minus F into fossil fuel. So you can just in principle F into biomass burning, so you can fraction that how much is actually coming from this one biomass burning, and this is actually F means the carbon 14 concentration in biomass burning, and FF means carbon 14 value in the fossil fuel. So you just measure these things, this is very important, okay. If you just don't do, then this way you can define this, okay. Then there are some advantage and disadvantage of this type of fuel. For example, solid fuels are generally defined as the fuel that are found at room temperature in their solid states. I mean, generally in the room temperature they are found in the solid state, so they can be, the advantage is that they can be transported and stored for a longer time. They can be transported from one place to another place, and they can be stored until and unless biodegradation of the material or the solid fuel takes place. The production cost or manufacturing cost of the solid fuel is less, this is very important, and then solid fuel have moderate ignition temperature. So if you are dealing with not ignition temperature, low ignition temperature and high, it is somewhere in between the high and low. Then disadvantage, even if the manufacturing cost is low, the handling cost is very high, because it has to be transported from one place to another place, and then another one is that it has to be stored. Then energy is wasted in a large quantity, this is another big problem. So that in this one 100% combustion efficiency will be, when we will talk about that, during the combustion process you do not get that 100% kind of efficiency, you get very reduced. The ice content of the solid fuel is very high, and they burn the forming clinkers. So because most of the time they are converted, actually most of these fuels they will be converted to, of course we will discuss that one, whether you have sufficient oxygen or less oxygen, they can be actually converted into the ices. Liquid fuel on the other hand are actually subject to the heat and pressure of the earth's crust. So of course we know solid is actually at the room temperature, and if you liquefy, consider another way that in the water case, if you have to convert solid into liquid phase, the temperature has to be higher, but here actually it is the same thing is subjected to the high pressure and heat, and then it is converted fossilized form, and then it remains in the extinct plant and animals, and then it is deposited inside the earth's surface. Okay, so this is very important. Instead of liquid fuel itself, the fumes are flammable. This is a big problem. So when you have to store them, you have to have a very good proper storage, otherwise this can be actually burning can take place. So usually this is like, you have a crude oil from where different types of crude oil is produced during this process, liquid fuel, and then you have kind of refined oil like petrol, diesel, and then gasoline and other things. Okay, then you have a gaseous fluid. Gaseous is being produced from the solid and liquid fuels both, and exist in the nature, gaseous form exist in the nature. Hydrocarbons carbon monoxide, hydrogen, and the combustion of all the three makes up the majority of the gaseous fuels. So we use different, for example, LPG or CNG, they are actually different terms of kind of hydrocarbons that are mostly used in the gaseous fuels, and then combination, and then you can also have a hydrogen in that one. Gaseous fuel includes compressed natural gas CNG, which we called it. This is actually like CNG that we know about, which is delivered through pipe to the kitchen in most of the homes. So CNG can be delivered in principle. Now we have another one actually that is called more PNG. This is less flammable, and when it comes to the in the contact with the atmosphere, it is not actually ignited or it is not burned. So that is actually good. Compared to solid and liquid fuel, the advantage of the CNG or PNG is that they have a high content, heat content is very high actually, and then they don't need any kind of any additional burner technology. This is already in the gaseous form, so you have just put in the fire, give supply, and then in the presence of oxygen it will be keep on burning. So disadvantage, storage liquid fuel requires a large tank, because this is in the gaseous form, so this has to be completely packed. If it is not completely packed, this gas can be leaked, and if the gas is leaked, then there will be a problem actually. And then because of the extreme flammability, there is a likelihood that hazard can happen because of this one, especially the fire hazards. So very strict and stringent measures are taken to control and transport these kind of fuels. Okay, just to give again, so this is all that we have. I will just give you an example of biomass fuels, different type of biomass fuels that we were discussing, modern fuels or modern carbon and natural fuels. So you have like actually wood, crop residues, then you have garbage, then you have landfill gases. From the landfill, actually you fill the land with the waste, and then waste can generate gas actually itself, and that can get caught fire. So especially the methane can be emitted from there, and then if you have other component, it can be. Then alcohol based fuels that can be used. These are the typical examples of this one. So types of biomass that we use today is actually, like I told, woody fuel or agriculture waste products and solid waste products that includes the waste plant leaves, then that can be classified as a garbage actually. And then of course you also have landfills, gases and biogases, then alcohol based fuels. These are becoming very important nowadays because these are some sort of environmental friendly. They can be generated or they can be produced from, for example, these crops, and that is already there, maize crops, jatropha is there. So this kind of plants can be grown up, and they can be converted into fuel, and especially in the alcohol. So ethanol and biodiesel are produced from this one, and the biodiesel terms itself includes that diesel which contains the bioform or biomass. So crop residue biomass burning, like rice straw, wheat straw, sugar cane, bagasse, maize stalks, cotton stalks, and groundnut cells are burned. These can be burned actually, and they can produce the energy. Then outdoor biomass burning, like solid fuel burning for cooking purposes or heating purposes, this is very common in India, and they can directly impact the health of the human. Now this is very important. Okay, so we discussed different types of fuels. Now what are the important factors that affect the fuel burning and the emission? Okay, so maybe I don't have a slides right now, but just to give you an idea that emission. Okay, so if you have to know the emission, you need to know that how much quantity of the fuel that you are using, and per kg or per liter of the fuel how much pollutants are emitted. Say for example, particulate matter or black carbon or carbon monoxide are emitted. So if you know that one, and then if the combustion process uses some kind of reduction technology in the emission factors, then you have to calculate the ER, emission reduction. So the reduction rate can be used, and then you can calculate that one. So I will have this after we finish this one, we will have the very kind of small mathematical calculations. We will do that one. So the very first thing is actually fuel type. So fuel type, for example, what kind of fuels that are actually burned, such as crop, straw or wood, can affect the emission and emission of the toxics like PHS. For example, even if you have, I just gave the example of the biomass burning, agriculture crop residue burning. Wheat and rice, they have two different things, and they are characteristically very different, and they can produce different significant amount of pollutants in the atmosphere. Then weather conditions. So farmers often burn their crop residues when temperatures are high and humidity is low and it is not raining, because if the rain is happening, then it will be completely, your burning will not be complete, it will be incomplete combustion. So it will generate lots of emissions, or it will be pyrolyzed. So you will not get more of content, it will not be completely converted into the ash. Then combustion temperature, this becomes very important. If you increase the temperature, the emission of polyaromatic hydrocarbons increases. Oxygen supply, this is another very important thing. So whether you have sufficient oxygen or insufficient oxygen, this can increase or decrease the pollutant emission. Generally, if you have insufficient oxygen, then the emission will be high, and if you have sufficient oxygen, then emissions will be low. Then biomass density, this is also very important. If you just simple biomass, if you just make it by pressing the biomass, so when you are pressing, the pressure is there. So in that case, it will increase the emission, density will increase, and then combustion efficiency can increase, but that will lead to an increase in the emission as well. And then season is also very important. Biomass burning emissions are higher in the cold seasons, okay, and when more biomass is consumed for heating. So this is another very important thing. Generally in India, biomass burning becomes very common in winter seasons, because they not only want to heat the atmosphere, but they also want to keep their houses warm. They are using that for cooking purposes and heating purposes. So this is important. Season is also important. So this and of course I discussed that what are the factors that are affecting the air pollution. Here in that air pollution, I am specifically discussing that how much fuel or different types of fuel can affect this one. Okay. So what is fossil fuel? So fossil fuel today, most of the energy that we use today is coming from the fossil fuels, and the reason is because they are actually energy rich substances formed from the remains of the once living organism. So they are 100,000 years back or 100 years back, they were and the living organisms were there, and they died and they made these ones. So you can have layers of sand, rocks and mud buried in the dead organisms. Over millions of years, heat and pressure changed the material into fossil fuel. So this is very important. So if you read the geology, students, they use actually these fossils to record the temperature, that what was the period when this kind of fossils were found. So a specific fossils can tell the exactly, they can tell you the relative time scale, that okay, this is this fossil belongs to this time period. So if you know that phenology, that okay, this fossil were derived from that particular period. And this, I told already that the three major sources are coal, oil and natural gases. Fossil fuels, coal is again a solid fuel, fossil fuel formed by the decaying of plant matter. Okay, it is considered to be most plentiful fossil fuel in the United States. However, coal mining can cause erosion and water pollution. Okay, this is, so if you do coal mining, then it will also cause the erosion and then water pollution. When burned, most types of coal cause more air pollution than the fossil fuel. So this is actually this because this is a fossil fuel and this has been decaying plant matter. So this is actually very rich in carbon. It contains very high molecular weight of hydrocarbons in that one. So this means if you just use that one, they will be putting lots of, if you just burn this kind of fuel, this will be giving lots of pollution in this atmosphere. The oil, that actually fossil fuel is another form of the oil, is another form of the fossil fuel is we use is actually oil, is actually thick black liquid fossil fuel. So of course when plants decaying, and when they underwent beneath the earth's surface, what will happen? Depending on the temperature, pressure of that particular location, and then of course other content, like for example the water. Okay, so if they were there, it can be actually converted into coal, or it can be converted into oil. So this you can actually, this becomes very important, and these are found by the remains of small animals, algae and protists. Okay, protists. Most oil deposits are located deep below the earth's surface. This is another very important. So you have it very deep below the earth's surface. Natural gas, this is very popular and is a mixture of methane and other gases. So methane is the main component, methane, ethane and propane. These are the typically gases that we use in the natural gases. This gas forms from the same organisms as oil, almost like same. Because of the less dense, natural gas can often rise above the oil deposits, forming a pocket. So it can be actually found in the top of the liquid where you have, on that one actually you will have natural gases. So natural gas produces lower level of air pollution. This is very important than coal and or oil, and is fairly easy to transport. Okay. But the problem is that it is very highly flammable, so a leak can cause a violent explosion or fire. So this is the very disadvantage I discussed in the previous slides as well. So I am not going to discuss this one as a carbon cycle. Of course, let us go a little bit. So fossil fuel as a part of carbon cycle. Plants use carbon dioxide and sunlight to make their food actually and grow. The carbon becomes part of the plant. When the plant die and they are buried, they turn into the fossil fuel made of carbon. For example, coal and oil over millions years. And when humans burn fossil fuel, most of the carbon quickly enters into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. So as we know, the end product will be carbon dioxide in the atmosphere along with the energy. Okay, yeah. So formation of carbonaceous aerosols. This is how we link, and that how it is primary organic aerosols are generated in this one. So diesel fuel is usually, for example, made of, we have carbon C8 to C21 hydrocarbons, and almost like 25% is actually polyaromatic hydrocarbons. So this is very important. So in the diesel fuel you have mostly C8 to C21. So already you are having a high molecular weight compounds there, and when you are burning them without oxygen or less oxygen or insufficient oxygen, what will happen? Simple aromatic hydrocarbons will be generated, and when they grow and polymerization process takes place, these polyaromatic hydrocarbons, simple aromatic hydrocarbons can be converted into the polyaromatic hydrocarbons, and small particulates that are produced in this one, and this actually as a mixture is called soot. Okay. And so soot is actually, I was discussing that whether soot and black carbon are same. The soot is actually, if you just talk about that, soot is actually from the small particles that are there, these particles aggregate and they form that black carbon, or they contain also the organic carbon. But when this is converted, so this is actually like becoming a kind of another form of organic carbon. Okay. So high temperature combustion under poor oxygen concentration produces black carbon, for example in the diesel exhaust. So this is another very thing. And then lower temperature combustion under high concentration produces organic carbon. So this means what is there, if you just have organic carbon, biomass burning is content is high. Here in the black carbon, in diesel one, this black carbon concentration is high. Of course, when you do, so this does not only produce only organic carbon, it is also producing black carbon or elemental carbon. Similarly, this is not only producing this one, but this is also producing organic carbon. So in principle, what you can do, if you measure OC to EC ratios in different types of fuel, okay, it can be characteristically different. For diesel it can be different, for petrol it can be different, for biomass burning it can be different. And similarly like in the previous slides I told that using the simple mass balance calculation you can tell that how much actually fuel is composed of diesel, petrol and biomass burning. So this can be actually in the atmosphere I am talking about, that once you have the unburnt hydrocarbons and particulate matter in the atmosphere. Okay. Then how this complete combustion and incomplete combustion of the fuel happens actually. So generally if you see, this is actually hydrocarbon. What is fuel? Fuel is actually a hydrocarbon, that is CXHYO, and then you have N and S also, okay, and then you burn in presence of oxygen. So what will be happening? It will give, of course, because the hydrogen is here, so it will give hydrogen, carbon will be burnt, so it will be giving CO2, but at the same time we will be also getting primary or carbonaceous aerosols. We will also getting, that is actually coming as a product of incomplete combustion. Okay, and then not only that, apart from this one, you will get the you will get in extra, you will get energy. Okay, you are getting energy, and our main idea is actually to get the maximum energy. How much energy you can get from a type of fuel, that is we have to maximize this one, and at the same time we have to reduce any cleaner fuel technology, we have to reduce carbon dioxide emissions, and we have to reduce particulate matter, primary carbonaceous aerosols emissions. So this is one thing. When we do the process, we have to maximize the energy. Our energy must be higher, must be produced in a higher quantity than and there should be low carbon dioxide and primary carbonaceous aerosols that should be present, that can be actually given there. And as I said, that not only you will also have here from you will also have carbon monoxide, but here carbon monoxide will be less. If you are burning in incomplete combustion, means oxygen is already less. So oxygen is not in sufficient quantity, it is deficient. What will happen? Some of this can be paralyzed actually, and all the carbons will not be converted to carbon monoxide. It will produce more of carbon monoxide actually and carbon dioxide, and then of course you will have primary carbonaceous aerosols here. And this is how it happens. I have not added here, I just explained. I have not added N and S here, so you can, because in the fuels you also have little bit amount of N and S that can be produced, and that is why in the coal, sulfur content is high, and when this coal is burnt, you are actually getting more of sulfur dioxide. So this is one of the reason that sulfur dioxide is coming more in this case, whereas the diesel and other plants, they have more of nitrogen actually. So if they have more nitrogen, what will happen? You will be getting NOx, either NO, NO2, something like this. So this is very important for all of us, that we need to know that whether it will be producing SO2 or NO2 based on these ratios also. So you can calculate the ratio, and based on the ratio you can define that whether the fuel is derived from the coal or it is of the fossil fuel, like diesel or petrol. So this can also, even in the coal and fossil fuel derived product like diesel, and within the fossil fuel, coal and this one diesel and petrol can be distinguished. So this happens, this reaction I talked, incomplete reaction, you have polyaromatic hydrocarbon and simple aromatic hydrocarbons or aromatic hydrocarbons, then you have volatile organic reactive species or gases here, then you have CO2, H2O, and then finally you have energy. And this when they condense all together, they give you actually like primary carbonaceous aerosols, PCA, and which is actually can be if you just define it, it will be contained organic aerosols and black carbon, or you can also put it as organic matter and black carbon, these things. So primary carbonaceous aerosols will be there, and then if you burn in complete combustion or your oxygen is efficient, then you can produce maximum, you can CO2 gas will be produced, H2O will be generated, and then you can have more of energy. Of course here I have not written, that is very much clear that actually carbon monoxide will be produced anyway in all the kind of reactions that we have. So this lecture, I think in this one I just give a brief idea about what are the different types of fuels, how the fossil fuel and biomass fuels are different from each other, and I talked about that what are the factors that are affecting the biomass burning and kind of emissions. And here I gave the example that if you burn in rich oxygen condition, which can also be defined as a oxygen rich atmosphere compared to the oxygen deficient or inefficient, then it can lead to the different type of pollutants that are emitted in the atmosphere. So this is very important that we know, and in the next lecture we will be finishing something on the kind of how these fuels, we talked about the general fuels, we will be discussing more on petrol and diesel fuels in this one. So I thank you for your patience listening, and if you have any questions, comments or suggestions, you can write to me, or you can email me, or you can just WhatsApp me or text me about their queries. So thank you so much.